Silent people are often misunderstood because in a world that worships noise, quick opinions, instant reactions, and constant expression, silence looks strange. It looks passive, shy, or distant. But the truth is far more powerful. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is awareness. It is a different kind of intelligence that operates underneath the surface, without announcing itself, without demanding attention, without trying to dominate space. And this is the first thing silent people see that talkers cannot. They see life without the distortion of constant mental noise. Most people fill every moment of their day with internal chatter. Their minds jump from one thought to another, from one judgment to the next. They speak not because they have something meaningful to say, but because speaking distracts them from what they don't want to feel. Talk becomes a shield. It becomes a way to avoid stillness because stillness reveals the truth. Silent people, on the other hand, are not afraid of that truth. They are not running from themselves. They are comfortable with the space within. And that comfort gives them access to perceptions other people miss. When someone is quiet, they can actually hear. They can hear the tone behind words, the hesitation behind smiles, the fear behind confidence. They can see the micro expressions that flash for a fraction of a second. They catch the shift in posture, the flicker in the eyes, the subtle energy in a room. While talkers rush to fill silence with noise, silent people use that silence to observe. And observation reveals everything. Silent people notice patterns, how someone reacts when they're uncomfortable, how they behave when they want approval, how they tense up when they lie. They observe dynamics in conversations, who interrupts, who competes, who listens, who pretends to listen. They pick up on the stories people tell about themselves, and even more importantly, the stories they avoid. Because silent people aren't busy preparing their next sentence, their attention is free. They see the world as it is, not as their mind wants it to be. They see the emotional undercurrents most people gloss over. They see who is genuine and who is performing. They see who is insecure behind their loudness and who is wise behind their calm. Silence also gives them the ability to think deeply. Talkers often speak before they understand, but silent people understand before they speak. They digest information, reflect on it, feel it, and see it from multiple angles. Their conclusions are not rushed. They are clear, grounded, and precise. And perhaps most importantly, silent people see themselves. They are aware of their own emotions, their triggers, their patterns, their strengths, and their faults. This self-awareness allows them to move through life with more intentionality and less chaos. Their silence is not a weakness, it is a doorway. Through that doorway, they see truths that others simply cannot, because those truths reveal themselves only in stillness. Silent people don't miss what talkers miss. They catch everything. Silent people move through conversations very differently than talkers. While most people enter a conversation with the goal of being heard, being seen, or being understood, silent people enter with the goal of understanding. This shift in intention changes everything. It allows them to notice the invisible layers operating beneath the surface of every interaction. Layers that talkers rarely detect because they are too focused on speaking, reacting, or maintaining their own image. One of the first things silent people notice is emotional tone, the temperature of a conversation. While someone may speak calmly, their underlying emotion might be frustration, insecurity, or excitement. Most people miss this because they are distracted by the words being spoken. Silent people, however, pay more attention to how something is said than what is said. They read the spaces between words. They sense when someone is holding back, exaggerating, or hiding behind politeness. Subtle tremors in the voice, changes in breathing, or tiny shifts in facial expression stand out sharply to them. Silent people also notice inconsistencies. When someone's words say one thing but their body language says something else, it is immediately obvious. Talkers often overlook contradictions because they are waiting for their turn to speak or trying to maintain the flow of conversation. Silent people don't need the spotlight, so their minds are free to pick up on details. A forced smile, a delayed response, a sudden stiffness. These are signals that reveal more truth than words ever could. Another gift silent people have is the ability to see what someone is trying to avoid. Every person has certain topics that make their eyes drift, their sentences shorten, or their posture tighten. These avoidance patterns are invisible to most, but silent observers catch them instantly. They can sense when someone is uncomfortable, when a person is lying to themselves, when they are pretending to agree, or when they are subtly competing. Because silent people are calm within, they feel the emotional energy of others more clearly. They sense neediness, arrogance, insecurity, or sincerity without needing it explained. A talker might hear a confident voice and interpret it as strength, but a silent observer sees the micro tremble that reveals the insecurity beneath. They notice when someone is trying too hard to impress, or when someone is genuinely at ease. Silent people also track conversational dynamics. They see who dominates discussions, who is ignored, who seeks validation, who deflects vulnerability, and who listens with presence. They observe how power circulates, who tries to control the narrative, who subtly manipulates, who tries to win approval, who withdraws when challenged. What is invisible to others is completely visible to them. And because silent people rarely interrupt, people reveal more around them. Talkers feel safe, sometimes too safe. They assume the quiet person isn't analyzing, forming judgments, or reading them deeply. This false sense of comfort makes people speak more freely than they realize, exposing truths they normally hide. All of this makes silent people extraordinary observers. They see the emotional architecture of a conversation, not just the surface. They see the truth most talkers overlook. They hear what is never said aloud. One of the most fascinating dynamics in human interaction is how talkers consistently underestimate silent people. In a world where loudness is mistaken for confidence and constant expression is mistaken for intelligence, silence is often misread as weakness. People assume that quiet individuals are shy, unsure, passive, or simply not paying attention. But this misunderstanding leads talkers to make a critical mistake. They reveal far more than they intend to. Talkers often operate from a place of momentum. Words flow out not because they are carefully chosen, but because silence feels uncomfortable. A quiet moment feels like a gap that must be filled. And so talkers keep filling it, unaware that their unfiltered speech is exposing their motives, fears, desires, and insecurities. Silent people don't need to provoke this. They just create enough space for others to spill everything out naturally. When someone underestimates you, they let their guard down. They stop performing, they stop filtering, they stop calculating what they should or shouldn't say. And because silent people rarely interrupt or compete, talkers feel like they're in control of the interaction. But the opposite is true. Silent people are observing, absorbing, and analyzing with clarity. They see the patterns in what someone repeats. They hear the emotional cracks in their stories. They notice the contradictions others don't even realize they're making. Talkers assume the quiet person has nothing to add. They assume the silence means agreement, submission, or lack of insight. So they speak more boldly. They brag a little more. They exaggerate a little more. They reveal their opinions, judgments, and weaknesses with surprising openness. They expose their biases, their ambitions, their resentments. They think they're leading the interaction, but in reality, they are simply exposing themselves in front of someone who is paying full attention. Silent people don't challenge talkers directly, not because they can't, but because they don't need to. Their power lies in their stillness. They don't show their cards. They don't rush to prove anything. They don't get pulled into verbal games or debates that talkers use to assert dominance. This lack of reaction confuses talkers. They try harder to impress. They talk even more. They overshare. What talkers don't realize is that silence is not emptiness, it's strategy. It allows the quiet person to read the entire situation before choosing how to respond. Silent people rarely speak impulsively. When they finally do speak, their words are precise, grounded, and unexpectedly powerful. And this moment often catches talkers off guard because they never expected the quiet observer to understand the situation more deeply than they do. This is why talkers often feel exposed around silent people without knowing why. The silent person saw everything, every emotional shift, every insecurity cloaked as confidence, every attempt at control, every moment of vulnerability that slipped through. They listened without judgment, but they also understood far more than the talker intended to reveal. Silent people are not passive participants. They are active observers with an uncommon depth of perception. Talkers underestimate them at their own cost, and in doing so they reveal the truth of who they are. The deepest reason silent people unsettle others is not their quietness. It is what their quietness allows them to see. When someone operates from stillness, their perception sharpens in ways that most people are not used to being seen. Silent individuals develop an insight that is subtle, calm, and penetrating. It does not rely on intellect alone. It comes from presence, from a mind uncluttered by noise, from an inner stillness that turns observation into understanding. And this insight is precisely what makes others uncomfortable, even if they cannot explain why. Most people walk through life unseen, even by the people closest to them. Their masks go unquestioned. Their performances go unnoticed. Their insecurities hide safely behind noise, humor, distraction, and constant talking. But silent people don't interact with the mask. They interact with the truth beneath it. Without trying, they perceive the emotions someone tries to suppress, the fears they hide, the intentions behind their words, and the patterns in their behavior. This depth of perception, though gentle, can feel exposing. Silent people do not scan for mistakes, flaws, or weaknesses. Their insight is not judgmental, it is observational. They simply see what is there. And most people are not used to being seen like that. When someone looks at you without projecting, competing, or demanding attention, it can feel unsettling. It forces you to meet yourself. And meeting oneself is something many people avoid. Silent individuals also sense alignment. When a person's words match their actions, when their energy matches their intention, when their outer expression matches their inner state. When something is off, when someone is pretending, when they are forcing confidence, politeness, or enthusiasm, the silent observer notices instantly. This subtle detection of authenticity, or the lack of it, is something that talkers and performers find intimidating. This is why people often feel strangely exposed or vulnerable around a silent person, even if nothing was said. The quiet presence becomes a mirror, and mirrors don't lie. While talkers may distract others with words, silent people quietly reveal truth simply by existing. Their calmness disrupts the emotional turbulence of others. Their steadiness exposes the instability around them. Their clarity highlights the confusion others try to hide. Silent insight also creates a sense of unpredictability. People can predict how a talker will react. They speak their thoughts constantly, but a silent person is not broadcasting their internal world. They are not predictable, not because they are mysterious, but because they are private. Others cannot easily manipulate or influence them. They cannot be provoked into emotional reactions. They do not respond to ego games. This makes certain people uneasy, especially those who rely on dominating conversations or controlling the emotional atmosphere. Another reason silent people make others uncomfortable is that their presence encourages honesty, not because they demand it, but because lying feels heavier in silence. Pretending feels more obvious. Superficial behavior feels out of place. Their quietness invites authenticity, and authenticity is something many people fear. Ultimately, the insight silent people carry is a form of intuitive intelligence, a seeing that goes beyond words. It reveals motives, emotions, dynamics, and truths without needing analysis. It is calm, non-judgmental, and deep. And for those who live on the surface, that depth can feel threatening. Silent people don't try to scare others, but truth, when seen clearly, often does.